Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Bundesliga show. Hope everyone is doing well. We're back with another fantasy football previewing Matchweek 12 of the Bundesliga. So we'll get into that in a moment's time. Just a few bits of admin for say hello to Runa and get cracking. First and foremost, this is a pre-record tonight because myself and Runa, we've had to do it on a Wednesday opposed to being live on a Thursday. So if you do have any fantasy football questions, please do watch the video, take in Runa's advice, and then pop it in the comment section on YouTube subsequently, and then we'll come to things afterwards. Obviously, with that being in mind, that we're recording on Wednesday, just as the Champions League still kicking off. Injuries could still happen, anything like that. Obviously, with the teams playing tonight and Thursday, obviously there's the press conferences will still happen. So things might change. So again, ask us subsequently if things do happen, just to let you know we're doing advice based on things as of Wednesday at the moment. But before we get into anything else, Runa, how are you doing this evening?
Very good, thanks. Looking forward to tonight's Champions League action. Personally, I'm going to cover the Bayern game for Bully News. So excited to see if they can beat Barcelona again and seal first place in the group.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, please do make sure you smash a like on the video. As I mentioned, comment subsequently with your questions, and myself and Runa will cover that over the next few days, obviously with the video coming out live. And do subscribe. We're very close to 700 subs now, very slowly building up, which is great, but please do spread the word and make sure you smash the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of the excellent content coming your way. And of course, we're in partnership with Runa's Bully News, as you mentioned, providing all the best up-to-date fantasy information, long reads, transfer rumors, and everything else in between. So make sure you head over to Bully News, the website, or go follow them on Twitter as well. And yeah, just before we start, Runa, you've been having a pretty good time recently on fantasy football and cementing your status amongst the elites of the world. So do you want to let everyone know whereabouts you're sitting as your world rank?
Yeah, it's been going in the right direction for the past week. So at the moment, I'm 23rd in the world. So I'm pretty happy with that. I had a pretty good match day again last week. Had Grifo and Bellingham in my team, so they were among the biggest scores last week. But my only regret was picking Soboslai as my star man in midfield. But then again, with Grifo and Bellingham there alongside him, you can't have any regrets. So I'm pretty happy with the situation now. But as we all know, that can change in just a week, fantasy wise. So we'll see if I can keep it up.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm struggling just to get inside the top 250 of our league, let alone the world. So, I mean, I was at a wedding the weekend just gone, so I was a little bit distracted, and hence my ranking has plummeted. But anyway, enough of the introductions. Let's get cracking with our fantasy football selection and picks. So we're doing a full show tonight, obviously for everyone. So we're going through keepers as well. So Runa has, as per usual, provided his kind of three picks. So budget, mid-price, and premium, which are going below at the bottom of the screen now. So Runa, do you want to run us through goalkeepers to start with?
Yeah, my budget pick this week is Tobias Sippel from Gladbach, and of course Jan Sommer is still out, so Sippel is the cheapest starting goalkeeper at the moment, and yeah, I think I'm going to bring him in this week because I have Janis Blaswick too from Leipzig, and those two combine really well, and Blaswick will continue to start for Leipzig as well in Goulas's absence, so two second choice goalkeeper starting at the moment, and that can help you out in terms of saving money to spend elsewhere. So Sippel is a very good option this week too. And then moving on to my mid-price pick is a pretty cheap mid-price pick, but that's Sven Ulreich, who's in a similar situation at Bayern with Manuel Neuer still sidelined indefinitely. Nagelsmann said ahead of the Barcelona game that he doesn't know when Neuer will be back exactly. Depends on how he feels and how things go from day to day. And I just read earlier today that Bild reported that Neuer will definitely not be back for the Mainz game. So at least one game more for Ulreich in goal. And yeah, that's a pretty good price, 3.4 million for a starting goalkeeper for Bayern. So another cheap one there. And then finally, Manuel Riemann would be my premium pick if I were to pick an expensive goalkeeper, either him or Mark Flecken from Freiburg. But yeah, Riemann is just a bit cheaper than Flecken. And yeah, of course, he saved another penalty last week, his third penalty in the Bundesliga so far this season, if I remember correctly. So, and that, of course, he's rewarded for that in the game. And yeah, he proved his value again last week. And he's on 83 points now, which means he's the second highest scoring goalkeeper, only behind Jan Sommer. So he's doing really well again this season, just like last season.
Yeah, definitely. Seems like quite a lot of money actually for Ryman, considering he's obviously had his moments in goal this season as well. But he's obviously a keeper who is very busy in that, that really counts in terms of the points, doesn't it? With an away trip to Wolfsburg, again, expected to be very busy. So yeah, could well be an interesting option for everyone to go for. Any other keepers outside of that three? Obviously, you mentioned Flecken. Naturally, anyone else that comes to mind?
Yeah, well then the usual suspects. I would say Christensen, Rønnow, Pavlenka. Some of the cheaper options would be the ones I would consider personally.
Are they those two, Pavlenka and Christensen, also good picks because of the Friday night fixture? Knowing in advance.
As long as you don't pick both, of course. But yeah, one of them I would probably prefer Christensen just because he's a bit cheaper. But yeah, that's definitely an advantage because that means they can combine with whoever else you have in goal who will play later on the match day.
Absolutely. Good stuff. Right, on to defenders, and Runa's picks are now going running across the bottom of the screen. So over to you again, Runa. So starting with your budget pick.
Yeah, my budget pick is Michel Weiser, as so many times before this season, but this time I'm picking him for a different reason because actually mainly to say that I don't think you should sell him now, even and if he and Werder haven't performed in the last two games. Weiser actually hasn't been doing well recently, but Werder have the Friday night fixture at home against Hertha this time, and then they have another standalone fixture on Saturday at home against Schalke next week. So especially in light of that schedule, he's definitely still a good option and a player worth keeping, especially for the price. And then I just wanted to mention another low price option, Kilian Sildilia from Freiburg. Mm-hmm. At the moment, with Lucas Kübler back, he's not as nailed on to start as he was earlier this season. So actually, Liga Insider, which is a pretty good source for predicted lineups, is currently predicting Kübler to start down the right. So just a bit of a heads up for all the Sildilia owners. Might be time to sell him and maybe pick Weiser instead or another cheap option. There. So, but it also depends who will start on Thursday in the Europa League game. If Sildilia starts that game, then it's probably even more likely that Kübler will start in the weekend. So yeah, I think to consider there too. And then my mid-price pick, who is a player that I'm almost certain of bringing in this week, Paulo Otavio from Wolfsburg, and he's just a real fantasy Bundesliga beast. I just love having him in my team because just from winning duels alone, he picks up so many points. And a home game against Bochum, of course, makes him an extremely attractive option, even if Bochum are coming off an impressive win against Union Berlin. But I think I went to check Otavio's points last week, and I think he picked up 8 points just from winning duels alone against Leverkusen. So he's really good, one of the best options in that sense, and a really attractive matchup too. And then finally, Christian Günther from Freiburg. Freiburg is one of the teams I will target this week because they're facing Schalke, and any team that play Schalke at the moment is a team to consider. I'd say, especially now with Ruben Schröder also leaving Schalke and making things even worse for them. Just when you thought things couldn't go worse. So maybe Thomas Reis will be in charge at the moment. Tonight it's been reported that he will be appointed ahead of the game, so maybe that will give them a boost. But in anyway, I think Freiburg is a reasonable team to invest in this week, and Günther is incredibly consistent and has been one of the highest scoring defenders again this season.
Yeah, what do you reckon about the Rice news? I've also read that. Be an interesting appointment. Could be a good one. I would say out of the ones maybe available out there, but is there much they can do with the current playing squad?
Nah, it's looking really different. But I mean, Rice did work wonders with Bochum last season, but then of course it was a difficult second season this time, and it didn't work out. But at the moment, it just it seems so difficult to pull Schalke out of that slump. So, but Reis is certainly not the worst candidate they could hire, because he's been there before with a Bochum side that many tipped to get relegated last season, and he actually did quite well there. So it will be interesting to see how he'll do.
Yeah, you could add a bit more stability from the way that the team is playing structurally. Bochum, mirrored a little bit what Bielefeld did in their first year, being very solid and kind of built from that foundation. So yeah, I think that'll be a really interesting appointment should it happen. The Visor percentage pick is amazing, isn't it? 46% of people in the game already have picked him, and could after you say the kind of the fixtures, the next two that are presented to Werder, that number could only increase. The sort of numbers you're familiar with seeing, like Lewandowski and Haaland back in the day. Like the percentages are crazy high, and definitely is a differential that Octavio on 3% of people owning him at the moment. So yeah, some very good picks there. Any other players that you want to give a quick shout out to defenders wise before we move on?
Actually Lucas Kübler, because if it looks like Sildilia will be benched and Kübler will start, then he's actually a quite interesting option. If I remember correctly, Sildilia played as a centre back last week because Freiburg played with 3 centre backs, and Kübler was used on the right side of the fence. So that's an option for them too. And his ownership is 0% at the moment, and I think it costs around 6 million. So if you feel sure he'll start, then he's a good option. And then Borna Sosa too. I know Stuttgart were fresh last week. Sorry for bringing that up, Rory. But it will be a very different game this week against Augsburg at home, and Sosa has proven that he can do extremely well. So 2% ownership, quite low considering his potential this week.
Yeah, it feels like another must-win for my boys VfB. They need to start on the front foot. I think I thought they would have done better against Dortmund, but the quick start ended it as a contest, and very quickly, and it was always going to be, well, it wasn't even damage limitation, really. 5-0 is not good enough. But yes, less about VfB until next week, so I can start ranting again. We shall move on to midfielders then, and they are now going below at the bottom of the screen. So yeah, again, starting with your budget pick for this week.
Yeah, my budget pick is Felix Nemeka this week, Lucas Nemeka's brother, who actually started against Leverkusen last week, and he received a lot of praise from Niko Kovac after the game, and was singled out as the best Wolfsburg player on the pitch by his coach. So I think it's pretty likely to start once more against Bochum, and at 3 million and 0% ownership, I think he's a true differential. So if it still looks like he will start when we get a bit closer to the weekend, I think he's a very interesting option this week. And yeah, my mid-price pick is Christoph Baumgartner, who I've suggested before. And I think if you want a player from the last game of the weekend between Hoffenheim and Köln, then Baumgartner is one of the best options. He had a quiet match against Bayern last week, but then again, you probably didn't expect him to do really well against Bayern. Difficult matchup there, and this time it will be different against the Köln side that that have looked really leaky at the back. So I think he's a very good option, also in terms of flexibility to be able to sub him on for the last game would be pretty good. And then finally, Vincenzo Grifo, and I know he's a really popular pick, but I just wanted to mention him because, if I had to select just one player this match day, it would probably be him. He's coming off a 24-point haul against Werder last week, and he's up against crisis hit Schalke team in the standalone fixture. So I pretty much think he's a player you need this week. There's really no way around it.
Yeah, absolutely. A very interesting, great opportunity for Grifo to bag a load of points, involved in everything that Freiburg do going forward, set pieces and obviously penalties as well. And, it is good for direct free kicks a lot of the time as well. Some interesting ones there. Felix Nemecha, not seen as much as him compared to his brother or cousin, did you say?
I think it is his brother.
Yeah, I thought. Yeah, sorry. Well, yeah, it is his brother. Some good picks for midfield there. Any other kind of the regulars in terms of keeping players in, the likes of the Nkunkus, Kimmiches of these worlds? That's often questions that come in. Again, just to reiterate to everyone that's watching, this is a pre-record, so questions, get them into the comments section in YouTube after you've watched the video, and we'll come to them. Sorry, back to you, Runa, about just kind of the regulars that we see in our sides, and just fielding those questions in anticipation.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not expecting to make that many changes to my midfield this week. I've actually left out Kimmich for a few weeks. Last week I wanted to double up on Leipzig, and at the moment I'm kind of considering bringing Kimmich back, just because it's a bit more difficult fixture for Leipzig this week. I'm kind of thinking about whether to do that or maybe to pick Baumgartner, who I like as well. I also want to point out that Jude Bellingham has been doing extremely well this season, also fantasy-wise. In fact, if I remember correctly, he's the highest scoring midfielder in the game. I think his ownership is quite high, but if you look at the top players, I think he's not flown under the radar, but he's still a player that many probably doesn't see as a great fantasy option, and this season he's really proven that he is a really, really solid fantasy asset, and maybe even a must-have player from now on with the form he's in.
Yeah, I think that's mainly probably to do with the fact that his goal-scoring record in the Bundesliga so far this season was maybe lacking. I mean, he scored 4 goals in the Champions League already. His goal scoring return in Europe has been amazing, and maybe that's just what people still associate too much with this particular game, the Bundesliga fantasy game. His goals equals the most points, but Bellingham's game is so much more than just goals, which he is now starting to add anyway. It's the all-round game, the distance he covers on the pitch, tackles won, the passing. Everything adds up, doesn't it, Runa?
Yeah, that's the thing, and that's what makes him so interesting from a fantasy Bundesliga perspective, because you're rewarded, as you say, Roy, for so many other things than just goals, and he's just so involved for Dortmund and has taken even more responsibility this season than the last one. So yeah, a really good option, and I was really happy to have him in my side last week.
Smashing stuff. And finally on to our attackers or strikers. So we've got 3 brilliant options.
I just had one other midfielder that actually I wanted to ask you about. Sure. It's Enzo Milo from Stuttgart. From what I've seen, he's a pretty exciting prospect, and at 4 million currently looks like he will start for Stuttgart in that home game against Augsburg. So what do you think, Roy? Do you think he would be worth a shot?
Yeah, I think so. He's brought in, obviously, the first game after Pellegrino Matarazzo's departure as one of the changes that was made. And I think he did make a positive impression and impact. Obviously, the first 2 games that went pretty well for the team, and obviously subsequently Dortmund not so much. But he's an exciting player, is one that a lot of Stuttgart fans have had kind of on their lips for a little while and wanted to see more of, but not maybe had the chances so far. I think as a differential in a game where they're going to be at home to Augsburg, who, are an easier matchup than Dortmund is, but at the same time, Augsburg have been so impressive as well. It will be a really interesting challenge for him, especially from the physical part of this game, because he's obviously quite a slight player. He's not a large, industrious player at the moment. He's still got to grow into the Bundesliga as a fast and furious league, but certainly as an option to throw in there as, as players who won't have other people won't have picked yet. Yeah, absolutely, really interesting one. So yeah, well picked up there, Runa, and fingers crossed he has a really good game this weekend as well if he does start.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention him because I've been considering him as a cheeky differential. He's obviously a gamble and someone would bring in to free up funds elsewhere. But yeah, maybe a good pick this week.
Yeah, I need to start gambling with my league position, so I might well do that. Right, let's time to move on to strikers then and finish off the rest of tonight's show.
Yeah, budget pick this week is Niklas Füllkrug, and he's not really that cheap, but still 7.4 million for a player who has performed as he has this season is quite cheap. And yeah, after 2 quiet games, I think he could get back on the scoring sheet on Friday evening. Hertha are much more solid than they were last season, but Werder should rightly be considered favorite for this game, I think. And I kind of have a soft spot for those Friday night fixtures. The ability to start a striker on Friday evening is good, and then you can keep him for next week's game against Schalke, unless he picks up another yellow card. As far as I remember, he's a suspension risk. But either way, I think for this week he's a pretty good option, especially for the price. And my mid-price pick is Gregoritsch from Freiburg, who plays up front against Schalke, which automatically makes him interesting. And in addition, his price is fairly low, and I think he's been doing pretty well for Freiburg this season. Pretty consistent, and he's playing a standalone fixture, so I think a very good shout as well. And then finally, as a premium pick, I just wanted to throw Thomas Müller in there because I just noticed that his ownership is down to 4% after his spell on the sidelines, which means he's actually a differential now, and that's quite crazy considering he's usually one of the most nailed on Bayern players, and that he was the second highest scoring player in the game last season, only behind Lewandowski. So in terms of picking up points, he's been really good for several seasons, and I know he hasn't been as influential this season following Lewandowski's departure, but I think he should still be one to consider, especially if you aren't afraid to double up on Bayern. And I noticed that he's not starting tonight, which makes sense after his 3 weeks or something like that on the sidelines. But I think that makes it even more likely that he will start this weekend against Mainz. And 4% ownership is low for Müller, so maybe a thing to consider there.
Yeah, absolutely, really low that. And yeah, maybe Müller has struggled a little bit more this season in the more dynamic Bayern attack and maybe not being able to find that focus point. But now they're starting to use Choupo-Moting a lot more. Maybe that will help Müller actually in kind of starting a new partnership. It could be the next big thing, Choupo-Moting and Müller. We shall have to see. Any final shouts for strikers before we finish up tonight's show?
Yeah, it's pretty much the usual options. I'm thinking about Marcus Thuram and Musiala. I already have those two, and I'm pretty happy with them. Still like Timo Werner. I know I suggested him a few weeks ago, and then he picked up an injury that wasn't announced until just before the game started. So that was pretty unlucky. But again, last night he showed that he's starting to find his feet at Leipzig, and Leverkusen have looked really leaky at the back. So I think Werner is a good option too. And as far as I remember, his ownership is 4% too. So he's also a differential despite being pretty expensive and a big name.
Yep. Absolutely. And yeah, no, he looked good against Madrid. Showed some good movement to get his goal. Was a tap in, but it was good movement in the box. And that's certainly not something that he's ever lacked. As a striker, good stuff. So I think that will be us for the show this evening. So again, thank you for everyone that's tuned in. Again, just to mention, this was a pre-recorded show, so we've been doing this tonight on a Wednesday ahead because of schedules. So we've had to do this. So again, any questions that you have, please do put them in the comment section on YouTube once you've watched the show subsequently. Think of what you need to. If things change, obviously in the build up to the weekend, let us know, and we'll, Runa and I will get some replies out to you ahead of the Friday night fixture. Again, make sure you please do smash a like on this video. As I mentioned, comment along and subscribe so you don't miss anything from the fantasy football element. Make sure you pay real attention to Runa's advice. If you didn't already think he was the Don, he's even more impressive because he's 26th in the world at the moment and only going to go up, no doubt. So yeah, make sure that you are on it with regards to his advice. I shall be following suit for sure. But yeah, thanks everyone for watching. Really enjoying the fantasy football element of things at the moment. So really enjoying the community that we're building up and hope you all have a really great weekend of Bundesliga action and point scoring. So cheers, Runa, and we'll see you in the next one.